Yes. So, good morning all. So, this is very first class for Super 50 and General Studies. First I will tell you how the classes will be. Initially you will be having class initially for first 20-25 days. 10:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. you will be having Indian polity. Evening 5:30 to 7:30 is history, is fixed for another 3 months. Ancient, medieval, modern, world history, art and culture. These 5 will be taken by the Rasul sir. Then morning we will have 10:30 to 12. In this session it's continued with polity. You will have another class will be added, geography. Then after completion of polity again economic class will be added. So, in this way in the beginning you will be having 3.5 hours class, but after 20 days you will be having 5 hours of class, not more than 5 hours of class. So, first, so I will be teaching Indian polity. You should also know about me. So, my Indian polity, why I have to teach Indian polity? First you should know. So, I did with academics, I did my LLB and LLM. In LLB I did general LLB, then in LLM I did constitutional subject, constitutional law. So, I am expert in constitutional law and I am a practicing advocate at Hyderabad High Court also. So, couple of cases are with me. So, I had real time experience of dealing in the court of law as well. Apart from it, my 2 optionals when I was writing in 2011-12, my 2 optionals are Anthropology and Public Administration. Public Administration paper 2 is Indian administration. If it is Indian administration means complete Indian constitution will be covered in that up to some extent. I got a very good marks in that and nearly up to now 35 to 40 batches were been completed with respect to Indian polity. It was several other institutes like Unacademy, etc., etc., etc. So, from this experience I can tell that I had a huge experience of teaching Indian polity. So, I am the right person to teach you Indian polity, hence qualified, number 1. Number 2, this subject we have to master. Indian polity is static, application of Indian polity is called as governance. Indian constitution is inevitable for any examination. Indian polity is necessary, Indian polity is inevitable for any examination. Why? Because we are living in a political system which is following the constitution of India. So, I will start the first class with what is constitution. So, how and what is the constitution? First we have to understand what is the constitution. In that 5 topics are there. One is called as what is constitution, a book. What is the difference between parts and schedules in the constitution? What is the benefit of having a constitution? If we have a constitution, what is the benefit? Why? Because every topic we will have in this particular fashion only. Why and how? Why and how? Why fundamental rights? Then how fundamental rights? Why directive principles of state policy? How directive principles of state policy? First we need to know why for everything. Why fundamental duties and how fundamental duties? Why president? How president? Why prime minister? How president? How prime minister? So, for every constitutional body there is a requirement of knowing why his existence, why he is present, why we are going with parliamentary form of democracy, why not a presidential form of democracy. Why we have secular form of government, secular form of constitution, secular form of system, why not communal form of system? Again in secularism we have two, one is western form of secularism, other is Indian form of secularism. What is Indian form of secularism, what is western form of secularism? Everything we have to question and we have to move on, then we will understand. So, the same format, first we have to understand what is constitution, why we want the constitution, what is the benefit of having the constitution. So, what is constitution, what is difference between parts and schedules? The constitution is divided into parts and schedules, I will be explaining it. What is the benefit, what benefit I am going to get if I have a constitution? Why? Because there are countries which does not have the constitution. North Korea does not have the constitution. Britain, UK, United Kingdom does not have the constitution, but they are surviving. Some countries are surviving, some countries are unable to survive. For example, Somalia does not have any constitution, because of which there is chaos. Every time there will be civil war. Why? Because there is no written document. So, a written document is called as constitution. What is that also we will discuss. What is rule of law? Which country had constitution for the first time? Means what is constitution, first we have to understand. First we have to understand what is constitution. So, constitution is nothing but a written format of a document, a written format of document whereby there are rules, procedures, systems, where the law is mentioned in the format of a rule which we have to follow, which everyone need to follow. That written format of rules, regulations, systems, procedures is called as constitution. So, because of having constitution, what will happen? Because of having constitution, there will be certainty. Oh, in this way the presidential election will happen, in this way vice president election will happen, in this way a law will be made in the Lok Sabha, in this way Rajya Sabha will be functioning, everything will be clear, there will be a clarity, that is called as rule of law. And the best example of rule of law is constitution. For example, our Indian judicial system will follow CRPC and CPC, Civil Procedure Code and Criminal Procedure Code. What is that? If you open a criminal procedure code, section 304, section 305, oh, this person committed a murder, this person did a murder, so what is the punishment? Everything is written. The person who did a murder also, he know how many years he will be in the jail. Certainty. Confidence. Yes, I am ready for another 14 years into the jail. Confidence. While doing a crime also. That is the beauty of the rule of law. So, rule of law will imbibe confidence, rule of law will imbibe stability, the rule of law will create certainty in the minds of the people. So, the constitution is the best example of rule of law. The constitution is the best example of rule of law. Everything is mentioned in the book, procedures, rules, systems, everything is mentioned in the constitution, everything is mentioned in the written format, that is called as constitution. What is constitution? A legal document. What is constitution? A book which is sacred, which is having legal provisions, which are protected by the legal sanctions. Constitution is a legal document, a book, this is a book, a legal document that contains the basic and fundamental law of the nation, basic, very, very basic, you know, little bit advanced I will tell you. So, rule of law. So, how this law is coming up? For any country, a law is result of its customs. In any country, the law is result of its culture. In any country, for example, I will tell you, till 2005 we do not have in Hindu Succession Amendment Act. Means what? Till 2005 the property is shared only in the male line. Only son will be sharing the property, daughter have no right, female have no right. Why we follow till 2005? Why? Because our culture is telling we are patriarchal society. It is present in the law also that women will not share any property, parental property will not go to the woman. Till 2005 it is a law. From 1947 after independent India till 2005 we followed this. Why? Because Our culture is patriarchal culture. Our culture is male dominated society. So, this law that the property will be shared only with the males is because of the foundation, the fundamentals, the basics, the customs, the culture which we follow in our daily life. So, the constitution is also a legal document that contains very basic things, very fundamental things of the nation. Very basic things and very fundamental things of the nation, setting out the organization of government and the principles of society, how the government should run, what are the principles of the society, what is the principles of the society. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is there in our culture. What is there in our Vedas? Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is there. In our ancient India, all people should stay together. What is there in our medieval India? Dini Ilahi. In Mughal dynasty, Akbar followed Din Ilahi. What is Din Ilahi? All the religions are equal before the eyes of Sultan. So, for the Akbar who is supreme, for him also all the religions are equal. So, today in our constitution, what is there? Secularism. From where we got this principle of society which is called as secularism? We got from our own society, got from our own culture. It is there in our ancient history, it is there in our medieval India, it is there in our constitution. So, whatever is present in the constitution of India is not new, not alien, it is already present in our history, it is already present in our existence, it is already present in our Indian society. Now, what we did? We made it in a codified form, now we made it in a written format, now it is a legal document. Earlier it was not a legal document, now it is a legal document. So, constitution is nothing but a legal document which is having basic and fundamental laws of the nation. For every nation, not only for India, for every nation. For example, Pakistan have their own constitution. Pakistan believes they are Islamic Republic. So, all the Islamic rules are present in their constitution. They believe that it is based upon the religion. So, their constitution is also religious in orientation. So, any country, the constitution is nothing but basic and foundational values of their country. Oh, so constitution is nothing but very basic. Foundation is basic, constitution is nothing but which is the foundational value of any country. It embodies customs, morals, values, precedents, culture and so on. For example, I will tell you. In our constitution under article 17, they mentioned abolition of untouchability. Why they mentioned about abolition of untouchability? Means already society untouchability is present. So, when in our society untouchability is present, so through a legal document I am abolishing untouchability. So, the constitution is nothing but which is already present in the society, I am expressing in the form of a legal document. It is sacred law. That is basis for governance of the country. It establishes political system, parliamentary type of political system or presidential form of political system. It provides rule of law. What is rule of law? Everything will be according to the rule. In no parking zone, if you keep your bike, 200 rupees fine, rule of law. If no parking board is not there, then I can fight. Why you are charging? There is no board. Absence of rule of law. So, the constitution is nothing but a legal document, basic and foundational law of the nation. It embodies what is present in the customs, in the culture, in the morals. It is a sacred law. It establishes a political system and mainly it provides rule of law. That particular body is called as constitution. And we are great for the constitution because untouched, uncriticized, egalitarian, equality, democratic, because of all the positive characteristics which are associated with the Indian constitution, we feel and we believe that the Indian constitution is sacred. Constitution is a body of fundamental principles or established precedents according to which a state or other organization is acknowledged to be governed. It is just a procedures, how a state should perform its function, how the state should function, what are the procedures involved in it, how we have to govern, how it should be governed, how it can be governed. What type of governance mechanism? These all are embodied in the Constitution of India. So, the Constitution is not only just its principles, sacred laws, morals, customs, basic and foundational values, but also how it should be governed, how it can be governed also. So, the governance system is also embodied in this Constitution. That is the reason we have in the Constitution we will be discussing about President, Vice President, Prime Minister, Council of Minister, Governor, State Council of Minister, Chief Minister, Supreme Court, High Court. So, then what is the difference between parts and schedules? We know everyone. Already I have some awareness that few of the students started reading Lakshmikant. In that Lakshmikant you came across parts and schedules. What are parts and schedules? The Constitution is divided into original Constitution. This is original Constitution. In original Constitution in 1950, 395 articles were been there, 8 schedules were been there, 22 parts were been there. It took 2 years, 11 months, 18 days, 12 sessions, 22 committees, adopted on 26 November 1949 and came into existence on 26 January 1950. But I want to discuss about this. How many articles were been there? 395. Original Constitution at the time of 1950. How many parts were been there? 22 parts. How many schedules were been there? 8 schedules. But today, it got amended. It got amended multiple times. And we reached 470 articles, 12 schedules and 25 parts. So, sir, what is this schedules? What is this parts? What is this schedules? Articles, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 21A, different amendments happened. So, number of articles increased from 395 to 470. What is this schedules? What is this parts? I will tell you. Parts, like a category. Forefathers of constitutional makers, articles which are dealing with the union and its territory. Part 1. Citizenship, which all the articles which deals about citizenship. Part 2. All the articles which deals about fundamental rights. Part 3. All the articles which deals about directive principles of state policy. Part 4. Specific subject, subject oriented articles clubbed together and called as part. In that way, original Constitution, whenever we use the word original Constitution, means 1950 Constitution. In 1958 parts are there. Then what happened? It got amended according to the changing times. And as of today, we have 25 parts. So, 3 categories increased, like cooperative societies, a separate part came into existence. So, overall how many parts are there today? 25 parts. So, a specific category, that specific category having specific articles with respect to that category is called as part. Then schedule. Schedule is appendix, which cannot be added in the articles. I cannot club into articles. Why? Because schedule is appendix. Like 7th schedule of the Constitution, union list, state list, concurrent list. I cannot put in the article. Then what I did? I kept it separately as appendix. It is for reference only. The schedules are for reference, which I cannot add to the articles. I kept it as a separate entity. That separation of entity for reference is called as schedule. Like Schedule 7, power sharing, state, center, concurrent. 8th, schedule languages, 22 languages are recognized by the Constitution. Separately I mentioned. When I mention as an appendix for reference, which I cannot put in the original Constitution because of its huge number, which I keep outside the Constitution, is called as schedules. Like diagrams, indices, which we will be having in our books. We will go to the last page and we will refer, that is called as schedules. The constitution is divided into number of parts that deal with a broad but the specific topic. Schedule is like an appendix which can be referred to while reading an article. Schedules are auxiliary provisions which could not be accommodated in one single article. So, I kept aside, I kept separate as appendix so that I can use it for reference. So, schedule is also part of the constitution, again do not get doubt. Schedules are also part of the constitution, parts are also part of the constitution, but schedule is outside the book just as a reference. Outside the book just as a reference, those are called as schedules. Schedules are like list of certain items like languages are given in the schedule 8, and parts is an index which bifurcates the fundamental rights. Part 1 talks about what is India and its territory. So, clubbing of article based upon the subject is called as part, and in an article when the schedule lot of numbers cannot be added, I am adding it as an auxiliary, it is called as schedules. So, how many parts are there today? 25 parts. How many schedules are there in original constitution? 8. How many schedules are there today? 12 schedules. Original Indian constitution had 22 parts, 395 articles. Later 3 parts were added to the original constitution, making it 25. As of today, the Indian constitution recognizes 22 major languages of India in what is known as 8th schedule of the constitution as a separate entity. So, schedule is a separate entity, part of the constitution, as a reference is called as schedule. Originally the constitution contained 395 articles divided into 12 parts and 8 schedules. At present there are 448 articles, 255 parts and 12 schedules. The numbering still remains the same, but as and when the constitution is amended, new articles are added like 22, 21A. 470 are there, like sub articles came into existence. Sub articles came into existence. The number reached up to 448. So, constitution, what is constitution? So, constitution is a combination of parts and schedules. What is part? What is schedule? So, 3 things you have to remember, one is part, another is article, another is schedule. What is the benefit of having the constitution? True. Now, I forwarded you the history classes complete schedule. Which topic will be taken in a chronological order I provided you, of ancient, medieval, modern. You will have the clarity. What are all the topics? You can cross check with any other material across India. You can check if any topic is missing. You can check anything can be added to it. So, what will be there? Certainty will be there. Confidence will be there. That is the biggest benefit of the constitution is certainty. Confidence. Protects individual freedom, doesn't play absolute power in the hands of rulers. For example, North Korean President Kim Jong-un, King Kong, whatever he tells, that is the constitution. Whatever he tells, that is the rule of law. Kill him means the people will go and kill him. Why? Because there is absence of constitution. Where there is a constitution, there is a certainty. So, certainty is required in the governance, certainty is required in the administration, that is guaranteed by constitution. So, what will happen? There will be no absolute power. King Kong is having what? Absolute power. Iran also, now Iran became what? Religious country, religious constitution is there. What will happen? They are ready to do whatever blindly, because the constitution is religious constitution. People will have absolute power, but there should not be absolute power. If absolute power, then it corrupts absolutely. Limits the power of government and establishes a system of checks and balances. It empowers the citizens and others with a variety of rights embedded. It sets limits to the powers of government bodies. So, limited government will be there. You tell me, if prelims point of view, if the constitution is present, then the government will be absolute government, limited government, none of this, both of this. Limited government. Why? Because the constitution will tell what are your powers and what are not your powers. So the government will not be absolute. In North Korea, absolute power. In our Iran, absolute power. But where the constitution is there, the power will not be absolute, but the power will be limited. Limited or regulated. Limited government is important. If you are an IAS officer, if you have absolute power corrupts absolutely. What is rule of law? Then what is rule of law? What is rule of law? Rule of law is nothing but a procedure, a write-up. The best example of rule of law is constitution. Rule of law is the concept, output is constitution. Rule of law is the concept and the output is constitution. The example of rule of law is constitution. Rule of law ensure adherence to the principles of supremacy of law, equality before the law, accountability to the law, everything. We will be accountable to the law. Government will be accountable to the law. Government will be transparent to the law. Government will be responsible to the law. The law is supreme. Example, constitution. So we will be accountable, we will be responsible. There is no absolute power, there is limited power. The people will have the freedom, and the freedom is not absolute, the freedom is again limited. That is important. The freedom should be limited, the freedom should not be absolute. When the freedom is absolute, then obviously there will be misuse. Who will be guaranteeing this limited government or limited freedom? Rule of law. The example of rule of law is constitution. Equality before the law. Everyone are equal before the law. No person, he might be the priest, he might be the king's son, he might be a normal man. Everyone are equal before the law. Why? Because the law is not a man to discriminate. Yes or no? Law is not a man to discriminate. Law is it's abstract. Accountability to the law, fairness in the application of the law. There is clear separation of power. You are a judiciary, these are your powers. You are executive, these are your powers. You are legislature, these are your powers. You are NGO, these are your powers. You are common man, these are your powers. There will be proper separation of powers. That proper separation of powers is according to the rule of law. What is rule of law? Constitution. See, these are what? These all are advantages. Advantages of having a rule of law. This is rule of law. Separation of power, participation in decision making, how to participate, legal certainty, avoidance of arbitrariness, maintaining procedural and legal transparency. You know why I am focusing this much? Prelims questions all are basics. I will discuss the prelims questions also. Every unit I will discuss the previous year's prelims questions. You can ask any previous students. For every unit we will be discussing previous questions on prelims and mains. What are the questions they are asking? Absolute power, what is constitutional morality, prelims question and mains question also. This time also mains question, constitutional morality. What is freedom? What is the meaning of freedom? Meaning of freedom is absence of restraint. Means all the conditions will be removed, but I will be freedom which is limited, but there will be no conditions. I can pursue whatever I want. That is called as freedom according to our constitution. I will tell those. So this is called as rule of law. It is absolute supremacy or predominance of regular law as opposed to the influence of arbitrary power or wide discretionary power. Wherever there is rule of law, there will be no arbitrariness, there will be no absolute power, there is no one man becoming the hero. Hero rule will not be there. Hitler, one man hero, hero rule it is called as. It's a technical word, hero worship, which is called as hero worship. Why Germany became that much big and why Germany fallen down? Hero worship. Italy, Mussolini, hero worship. Whatever he tells, it is a rule of law. There is no certain book, but in India the rule of law is the book, the constitution. If man is there, there will be arbitrariness. If man is there, there will be discretionary powers will be there. How Hitler used, how Mussolini used. It guarantees equality before law. Rule of law ensures certainty. Rule of law will be conscience of the people. Rule of law will be the conscience of the people. In 2005, people agitated. Why you are not giving the property to the daughter? She is also human being like son. It is the conscience of the people, and they changed the rule of law. Yes or no? And they changed the rule of law. Right to education. Why right to education should not be a fundamental right? Every citizen, every child of the country should get compulsory education. Then it became a rule of law. Why? Because it is a conscience of the people. People demanded it. So the rule of law is nothing but conscience of the people. Rule of law is nothing but certainty, which ensures certainty, which ensures responsibility, which ensures accountability. So compulsory we want constitution. This many benefits are there. This many benefits are there. Big benefit is, which I like, is absence of arbitrary power, absence of discretionary power. It might be the Prime Minister, it might be the President. He cannot exercise power according to his or her wish. They should also follow rule of law. Where there is no arbitrary power, where there is no discretionary power, there will be people's rule. Book, everyone knows the certainty. Certainty will be more when there is absence of arbitrariness, where there is absence of discretionary power. That is the beauty of rule of law, and the best example of rule of law is Constitution of India. So which country, sir? Which country had a constitution for the first time? Which country had the constitution for the first time? There is a small country which is called as San Marino. There is a small country which is called as San Marino in Europe. It is the first country in the world which created constitution for themselves. A proper legal document. It is located somewhere here. San Marino, Italy, inside Italy, a separate country. The constitution of San Marino is the world's oldest active written constitution. Some of its core documents have been in operation since 1600, while the Constitution of United States is the oldest active codified constitution. So this is the oldest with respect to time is San Marino. Written codified legal document oldest is United States of America. Means they had a constitution which they followed. They had a constitution which they followed. It is a kingdom. But they had a constitution. San Marino in 1600 is a kingdom, but they had a constitution. United States of America has an active old codified constitution which is a legal document by a democracy. So when the democracy old constitution is United States of America. Chronologically old, what is the oldest constitution means? San Marino. Did you got it? Chronologically old is San Marino. Legal codified people's constitution oldest is United States of America. US Constitution considered as the oldest written constitution because of its legal document which is made by the people's representative. San Marino is the oldest constitution existing, but it is made by the kingdom. The Constitution of the United States established America's national government and fundamental laws and guaranteed certain basic rights for its citizens. It was signed on September 17, 1787. So the oldest written legal document constitution came into existence in 1787, which is made by the people's representative. 1600 which is made by the kings. San Marino is a kingdom. Oh, so this is constitution. The constitution is the best example of rule of law. Why we want the constitution? What constitute constitution? What is rule of law? And the first constitution in the world is San Marino, but the legal document which is made by the people's representatives, oldest constitution is USA. Why we need constitution? As I told, why you want constitution? Why we want constitution? For arbitrariness. Why we want constitution? We want a constitution because a ruler should not exercise his arbitrary power. Ruler should not exercise his power according to his discretion. So the rule of power or rule of law which is exercising should be exercised according to the document. It should be according to the document. It should not be according to the people. Individual should not exercise the power. System should exercise the power. What is the system? Constitution is a system. When people exercise, people is having brain, so there is a chance that he might use his discretionary power. He might use his arbitrary power, which is dangerous, which can help his own people, which can help him benefit, which can help for his own growth. But when the system is ruling, when the system in the form of constitution is ruling, then there will be certainty, there will be no arbitrariness, then there will be no discretion or discretionary rule. That is the reason we want constitution. Avoids arbitrary. Power and authority will be with the institution, not with the individuals. Parliament is an individual, means Parliament is an institution. It is, the power is not vested in the Prime Minister, the power is not vested in the President, the power is vested in the Parliament. Institutions will exercise the power. So, in constitution what will happen? Individuals will not exercise the power, but institutions will exercise the power. When the institutions exercise the power, then there will be no arbitrariness, then there will be no discretionary powers. So, we want the law which is made by the institutions but not by the individuals. North Korea, the law is made by the individuals, not by the institutions. In India, the law is made by the institutions, not by the individuals. Wherever there is a constitution, institutions are paramount. Wherever there is constitution, institutions are paramount, like Election Commission of India or Union Public Service Commission or Parliament, not individuals. Narendra Modi as an individual is nothing. Narendra Modi as a Prime Minister of the parliamentary system is paramount. So, institutions will rule, not the people will rule, but North Korea, the people will rule. Ensure liberty to the individual. I know what are my freedoms. Why? Because it is written clearly. It ensure liberty to the individual. Oh, these all are my freedoms, these all are not my freedoms. Very clearly. It ensure liberty of the individual. And the government is also not super powerful, the government is also limited government. The government is also limited government. Where if individual is ruling without the constitution, then he will become supreme. Then he will exercise his arbitrary power, he will exercise his discretionary power. But when the institution is ruling, there will be limited government. That government is limited by whom? By the constitution. Individual will be exercising liberty, individual will be exercising freedom. Who is giving this freedom? Constitution. So, because of all this we want constitution. Constitution enforces or ensures confidence in the people. What are the basic rights of the citizens? Minimum to minimum basic rights. Right to life and liberty, right to speech and expression, right to have a dignified life, no child labor, no human trafficking, I will follow my own religion, minority rights. These all are minimum basic requirements. The minimum basic requirements, rights are provided by the Constitution of India. So basically what you want to tell, sir, if someone asks me, I will tell you. So, what is constitution? First we need to know. So, constitution is nothing but rule of law, where there is no arbitrary power on the individuals. The institutions will be ruling but not the individuals. Basic rights of the citizens are guaranteed. Confidence of the people is ensured. The government which is present is limited government. And certainty, stability, no partisanship. These all are ensured only by constitutional form of government. These all are ensured only by constitutional form of government, and our constitution is Indian constitution. So, how this Indian constitution came into existence? The first unit of Indian polity is historical underpinnings of Indian constitution. So, how this great constitution came into existence? On 1950 January 26th. So, what are the steps, baby steps in the formation of Indian constitution? 1773 Regulating Act of British India, 1784 Pitt's India Act, 1793 Indian Charter Act, 1813 Indian Charter Act, 1833 Indian Charter Act, 1853 Indian Charter Act, then 1858 Government of India Act, then Indian Councils Act of 1861, then Indian Councils Act of 1892, then Indian Councils Act of 1909, then Government of India Act of 1919, then Government of India Act of 1935, finally Indian Independence Act of 1947, at the last the Constitution of India. A baby steps, compulsory expected questions. So, first, what is constitution? One question is coming on the basic constitution. The term constitution, they are asking one question. What is the word constitution? They want to ask. अच्छा ये चीज़ है constitution बोले तो. अच्छा constitution is nothing but rule by the institutions. No rule by the individuals. No arbitrariness, no discretionary power by the individuals. Institution itself is a ruler. Limited government. This is what constitution is. So, in 1600 the British came into India with a diktat, ek letter leke. They took one letter and they came to India by the name called as East India Company for the sake of doing business in India. And from 1600 onwards the journey of East India Company started. From 1600 onwards the journey of East India Company started. This all will be discussed in your history. But for my constitution, these are the baby steps. The arrival of the East India Company is the first step in 1600. They came with a diktat. They came with a diktat from Crown of British that we will be doing business in your country. And they came successfully in 1600. Slowly they got established, monopolized. The complete country commercial activities came under the control of East India Company. The complete commercial activities of East India Company came under the control. The commercial activities of India came under the control of East India Company. Then they started that. Economically we have money, commercial activities we are doing. Next thing what? I want power also. I want the people to listen to me. So, not only economy, I want politics. So, they started usurping the kingdoms. They started acquiring the territories. In that process, a very big success in 1765 by the name called as Battle of Buxar. From 1600 to 1765 they monopolized the commercial activities and they also entered into political arena, and in 1765 the British East India Company waged a war on Mughal Empire, and there was a very big war happened which is called as Battle of Buxar, and in this war the Mughal lost the war. Diwani rights, collection of land revenue. Diwani rights, collection of land revenue. The British got. Up to now the Mughals used to collect the tax. Now onwards British will collect the tax. Means politically I became supreme. Mughal Empire means Indian Empire. In the complete Mughal Empire region, now British will be collecting the taxes. Means I am the political power. Tax collector is the political power, which is called as Diwani rights. So, East India Company now started collecting the taxes also, and the Mughal Empire became a pensioner. You sit there, I will give you money monthly, I will collect the tax, you no need to collect, I will give you your share. With that you run your Diwani, you run your house, you run your kingdom. Kingdom means that fort. Okay, it's okay, at least I am alive. So, British got political power. So, now what happened? A private, it's nothing but a corporate company. It is nothing but a corporate company like an academy or any other. It's a corporate company. Total commercial activity. If commercial activities are unregulated, what will happen? They start regulating. If we don't regulate it, they start regulating. The same thing happened with East India Company. So British are not like us. They thought East India Company is collecting the taxes, so it need to be regulated. So Act came into existence, which is called as Regulating Act of 1773. This is the first step. This is the first step, Regulating Act of 1773. In 1600, summary in a write-up format. In 1600, English East India Company came to India with exclusive trading right by Queen Elizabeth by charter to trade in India. As a result of company's victory in Battle of Buxar in 1764-1765, the company gained Diwani rights in 1765, which is called as right over revenue and civil justice for Bengal, Bihar and Odisha from Emperor Shah Alam, and the emperor turned as a company's pensioner. In 1857, the first war of next big event. So this Battle of Buxar is a very big event where the East India Company got the political power. Then what? Then next big event is after Battle of Buxar, 1857 Sipai Mutiny. First war of independence where the Indian Sepoys revolted against the British. Almost the British lost the war, but suddenly they won. Then the British understood, no more East India Company, complete control of India by the Queen, complete control by the Crown in India. So two rules, one is called as Company's rule, other is called as Crown rule. One is called as Company's rule, other is called as Crown rule. The Company's rule started from 1773, Crown rule started from 1858. Prelims point of view. What is the battle which is responsible for Company's rule? What is the battle which is responsible for Company's rule? Battle of Buxar. What is the battle responsible for Crown's rule? Sipai Mutiny. In 1857, the first war of independence broke out, which was called as Sipai Mutiny. As a result of 1857 revolt, the British Crown assumed responsibility for governance in India. So from 1857 onwards, they took the responsibility of India. For that, they have to make a law, and that law is called as Government of India Act of 1858. From 1773 onwards, it is called as Company Law, Company Rule, and from 1858 onwards, it is called as Crown. It continued till 1947 with Indian independence. With the need for constitution in 1946, Constituent Assembly was being formed. Indian constitution came into being. During British rule, certain events were legal framework for governance and administration. Those all were being added into Indian constitution. So one by one, we will be understanding. So in your syllabus, it is there from 1773. This is the background before 1773. So what is the background? First we have to understand what is constitution. We have to understand what is constitution. We understood what is constitution. Constitution is nothing but a rule of law. We understood what is rule of law. Why we want constitution? We understood. What is present in the constitution? We understood. Then how come this constitution came into existence? Started from 1600 till 1765 Diwani rights. Then the very important Act of 1773, which is called as Regulating Act. It continued till 1857, which is called as Company's Rule. From 1858 onwards, it is called as Crown Rule after Sipai Mutiny. Now everything is under the control of British Crown from 1858 onwards. And in 1947, we got independence and the Constituent Assembly framed the Constitution of India. This is a basic unit. So, we understood what is constitution, we understood what are the parts which are present in the constitution, we understood what is the benefit of constitution. The constitution is the best example of rule of law. Then what is rule of law? Against arbitrariness, individual's freedom is guaranteed. Then the chronology of existence of Indian constitution started from 1600, then 1765, then 1773 to 1858, then 1858 to 1947. So, historical background, this is the first chapter. This is the first chapter now. Why? Because you see the prelims questions, I will show you tomorrow. Constitution, constitutional morality, the terms are very important, you know. Those terms, if you read NCERT also, you will not get. When you will get the terms means, at that particular junction, when you come across, you have to stop there and you have to think, you have to read. Arbitrariness, arbitrariness, arbitrariness I used. What is arbitrariness? What is arbitrariness? Arbitrariness, ishtamochinattu. Discretion, arbitrariness. However they want, they are going to rule, like King Kong, arbitrariness. In 1600, English East India Company came to India with exclusive trading right by Queen Elizabeth by a charter to trade in India. As a result of company's victory in Battle of Buxar 1764, the company gained Diwani. Diwani rights were the rights guaranteed to British East India Company to collect revenues and decide the civil cases. Very important. Diwani rights means not criminal cases, civil cases and collect revenue. Diwani rights which we got after, which British got after Battle of Buxar is civil cases, revenue collection, only two, no criminal cases, civil cases and revenue collection. For Bengal, Bihar and Odisha, from Emperor Shah Alam, and the emperor turned as companies. In 1857, the first war of Indian independence broke out, which was called as Sipahi Mutiny. As a result of 1857, the responsibility for governance of India, it continued till 1947. Constitution, Constituent Assembly came into existence, and the first is this. Companies Rule 1773 to 1858. Crown Rule 1858 to 1947. My intention of repetition is, it should fix it in the classroom only. After going out from the class, just you have to do once revision. It should fix, it should imprint in your mind. 1773 to 1858, 1858 to 1947. It is called as Companies Rule, it is called as Crown's Rule. What are there? What are there? In East India Company Rule, what are all there? Regulating Act of 1773. Regulating Act of 1773. Pitts India Act of 1784. Charter Act of 1793. Charter Act of 1813. Charter Act of 1813. 1833. Charter Act of, these 6 legislations you have to remember. The 6 legislations, I will be decoding it. So, 6. 1773 is called as regulating. Why sir regulating? Why? Because British East India Company is collecting the taxes. So, they can collect according to their wish. People might be exploited. Complete property of the people might be taken by the East India Company. Why? Because they are private people. So, they should be regulated. So, regulating act. Then there might be some mistakes. To correct it, Pitts India Act. Charter. Charter is nothing, a letter. These are the powers, these are the powers, Charter Act. So, powers were been added from 1793, 1813, 1833, 853. One by one, one by one, one by one. First, reasons behind the Regulating Act of, what are the reasons? What is the background behind the Regulating Act of? Now they got the Diwani rights. They have the power to collect the revenues. They have the power to give justice on civil cases. Means what? This land belongs to British East India Company. This everything they can take now. Why? Because they are the judges of civil cases. Land cases are civil cases. If not, what they will do? They will remove the private property and all the property will be in the hands of East India Company. So, they have to be regulated. Territorial expansion. Now, East India Company, they got the political power on Bengal, Bihar, Odisha. So, now they are going for more area, greediness, more area, more collection, more area, more collection. Uncontrolled power they are getting, and they are going for territorial expansion. In territorial expansion, they will go for war. In going of the war, they might kill the people disproportionately. So, this will be mark on whom? This will be a negative mark on whom? British. Who will be blamed? Not East India Company. In the world, who will be blamed? British. The dark mark will be on the history of British. So, British want to regulate East India Company. Why? Because the East India Company is going on territorial expansion. This is one reason. Corruption. Private people. Private people means obviously there will be corruption. Corruption amongst the servants of the company. Huge corruption. Lack of proper judicial administration. Lack of proper central authority. Why? Because East India Company, private people at every level, absence of telecommunication, absence of information communication technology, absence of CC camera, absence of technology. So, control should be there, absence of central administration. Deteriorating financial conditions of the company. What happened? Mainly because of corruption. Now, East India Company is not doing the business. What? At the down the line, every man started buying and selling in the country, Huge corruption happened. Who is in the loss? East India Company is in the loss. So, by seeing all these things, the British understood that now immediately have to regulate East India Company. And they came up with the act called as Regulating Act of 1773. Prelims point of view. What is the background for Regulating Act? We will be studying only what? We will be studying what are the provisions of Regulating Act. But what is the background for the Regulating Act is also very important. Citizenship Amendment Act 2019, which is responsible for communal violence in Delhi, 100 people were been killed. 2020 January, if you remember. Why we want a Citizenship Amendment Act? What is the background for Citizenship Amendment Act is also important. Farmers Law, 3 farmers laws, huge agitation by the farmers. Farmers Law provisions, before that what is the background of Farmers Law? Regulating Act of 1773. First step by British government to control and regulate the affairs of English East India Company. Why? Because the credibility of British is under threat. Because the credibility in 1600 when they are coming, they came up with a letter called letter from British Crown. If any mistake happens, who will be responsible? For example, you recommended a person and I gave him a job. And if he is doing all wrong things, I will blame whom? Recommended. From where the recommendation came? The recommendation came from Crown. So, this is the very first step to regulate East India Company. First time recognized administrative and political functions of the company. They divided. These are your administrative functions, these are your political functions. Political function means territorial expansion. Administrative functions means how I am going to administer the affairs of India. So, they segregated the functions of administration and properly they segregated the functions of politics. The first step in controlling the affairs of East India Company, which act? Regulating Act of 1773. For the first time, divided into administration and political. Administrative powers are different and political powers are different. How? I will tell you. Foundation for central administration. Who is central now? British. For the first time, the affairs of East India Company will be regulated by British. So, everything is centralized now. So, British started surveillance, British started supervising, British started what is happening in India. By which act? Regulating Act of 1773. Why? Because the credibility of the East India Company is under threat and the East India Company existence is because of British Crown. If I don't regulate, my credibility is under threat. So, who should regulate now? British Crown. That is the reason, the first step to control East India Company by the British, First step for centralization means everything is coming under the ambit of British Crown. Governor of Bengal became Governor General of Bengal. He is general now, complete Governor General of Bengal. First point. Executive Council of 4 members to assist Governor General of Bengal. So now there will be 4 members who will be assisting Governor General. These 4 members of Executive Council will be recruited by the British Crown. So whatever the Governor General is doing, the information will be given to the British Crown. And these 4 members will be giving advices to the Governor General, and the Governor General will listen to this Executive Council, because these Executive Council members are from whose members? British members. So with the Executive Council, the British started controlling the East India Company. Who is the head of the East India Company? Governor General of Bengal is the head, but he is working under the recommendations of Executive Council. 4-member body, and this 4-member body is recruited by British Crown. Executive Council is recommending Governor General of Bengal. So Governor General of Bengal should work according to the recommendations given by Executive Council. Such first Governor General is Warren Hastings. Governors of Bombay and Madras were made subordinate to Governor General of Bengal. In that way, the Governor of Bombay, the Governor of Madras were being made subordinate to Governor General of Bengal. So who is supreme now? Governor General of Bengal is supreme. And who are his subordinate? Governor of Bombay and Governor of Madras. That means before 1773, these 3 are equals. That means before 1773, these 3 are equals. Now in these 3, who is supreme? Governor General of Bengal. And only Governor General is having Executive Council of 4 members who are recruited by British Crown. And he should work on the advice given by the Executive Council. If he won't work, they will make a phone call. See, he is not listening, remove him. So indirectly, the East India Company is controlled by British. That is the reason the first step to control the East India Company started by Regulating Act of 1773. Why I am going back, that we have to remember. This is the first step to control East India Company by British. Establish Supreme Court in Calcutta with 1 Chief Justice and 3 other judges. Now, 1 Chief Justice with 3 other judges, 1 Supreme Court came into existence, which will be looking into criminal cases. Whereas Diwani, civil cases. Who is the head of Diwani? Governor General of Bengal. But Supreme Court will be looking into criminal cases. Accepting bribes, present or engaging private trade by company servants is strictly prohibited. Like our government school teachers, no private tuitions at home. Here also what they did, East India Company servants, they started doing business privately, not as a company, as an individual. So huge bribes. So you can write, if there is any general essay, understand this. In this way we will be linking every class. If running notes is there, you can write. Any question on corruption, corruption in India is not indigenous. We got it from British. Who trained taking corruption for Indians? It is the British. The British servants used to do private trade. Who told this? The British law told this. I am not telling. The Regulating Act of 1773 told that huge bribes and corruption is there among the servants of East India Company. It need to be regulated. So the corruption activity in Indian administration is not ours. It is a legacy of British. So yes, this British legacy should be removed. The corruption is not indigenous of India. It is inherited from British. They not only gave railways, they not only gave telecommunication, they not only gave English education, they also gave corruption. Accepting bribes, presents or engaging private trade by company servants is strictly prohibited. That means what? British Crown accepted that their officers are corrupted. It accepted legally by a law. So when you are writing an essay, The corruption is a British legacy. It is not an inborn activity of Indian citizen. For instance, Regulating Act of 1773 accepted that the British servants are accepting huge bribes, corruption from the local people. So, the corruption is British legacy. How we are removing all the British legacies? Immediately we have to remove the corruption, which is a part of British legacy. British government required the court of directors 24 members to report revenue, civil and military affairs. Then what they did? They had one court of directors. There is one court of directors, complete East India Company affairs. Like for every corporate company there will be board of directors, no? Similarly there is court of directors for East India Company. So, British government required the court of directors to report revenue, civil and military affairs. Whatever the civil matters, whatever the revenue matters is happening in the East India Company, the report should be submitted to British. So, British can scrutinize it. British can do audit. How much revenue you got, how much military acquisitions you got, how much income is generated. So, now onwards the audit report of East India Company, which is under the control of court of directors, they need to submit to centralization. Complete money is under the control of now British Crown. These are the provisions of regulating. First one, what is this? Governor of Bengal will be called as Governor General of Bengal. Governor of Bombay and Governor of Madras are subordinate to Governor General of Bengal. Third, there will be Executive Council of 4 members who will be advising Governor General of Bengal. Next, they will be recruited by the British Crown, so they are accountable to the British Crown. Next, there will be a Supreme Court with 1 Chief Justice and 3 other judges, which will be mainly dealing with criminal cases. Next, the corruption is completely banned by the Regulating Act of 1773. Next, Court of Directors. All the revenue matters and civil matters, the report need to be submitted to the British Crown. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Governor General of Bengal, Executive Council. First Governor General is Warren Hastings. 6 points are there. Quickly, what are the 6 points? Compulsory, this laws, one question they will ask in prelims. It can be Regulating Act, it can be Pitt's India Act, it can be Indian Councils Act, 1793, 1813, 1833, 1853, 1858 Government of India or Indian Councils Act. Each act you have to remember. First provision, Governor of Bengal as Governor General of Bengal. Number 2, Governor of Mumbai and Governor of Madras became subordinate to Governor General of Bengal. Third, 4 executive councils will be working with Governor General of Bengal. Next, there will be a Supreme Court. Next, Court of Directors is accountable to the British. One more point, corruption. They accepted corruption. They banned corruption. Then in between, Amending Act of 1781. Sir, here 1781, these are very, very important legislations. In between some are there, I will tell you, but these are very, very important. 1781. The British Parliament passed the Act of Settlement 1781 on 5th July 1781 to correct the mistakes in Regulating Act of 1773. Oh, so this amending act is amended what? Regulating Act. This act's main purpose was to define the relationship between the Supreme Court and the Governor General in Council. Simple. Now conflict arised. Supreme Court, I am Supreme Court. Governor General in Council, you might be Supreme Court, but I am recruited by British Crown. So there is a conflict. The judgment given by the Supreme Court is negated by Executive Council of Governor General. Both started fighting. My judgment is final, Supreme Court is telling, Governor General and Executive Council is telling that no, my judgment is final. So this Amending Act of 1781, the conflict which arised because of 1773 Regulating Act is neutralized by giving rule of law to Supreme Court and Executive Council. On this you can make rules, on this you can give judgment. You cannot enter into Supreme Court, Supreme Court cannot enter into executive. That is called as amending act. Prelims point of view. The amending act of 1781 or act of settlement of 1781 is main purpose is to neutralize the conflict between Supreme Court and the amending act of 1781 or declaratory act of 1781 is the prevalent name for this law. The primary goal of this act is to construct a new court system to address complaints about Supreme Court and the regulating act's failure to oversee administration through the judiciary. So, the conflict between the Executive Council of Governor General and the Supreme Court was been neutralized by amending act. So, they came up with a new court system which is not earlier Supreme Court of 1773. Why? Because there is a conflict between Supreme Court and Executive Council of Governor General of Bengal. This is amending. Important. Why this amending act of 1781? To neutralize the conflict between Supreme Court and East India Company. The next big act. The next big act is Pitt's India Act of 1784. This is a symbol of East India Company. Corrupted people. East India Company Act 1784, very, very important. Pitt's India Act is also called as East India Company Act of 1784. Amending Act of 1781 is also called as Act of Settlement, also called as Declaratory Act of 1781. Statement wise they will ask. I am telling you 1773, 1784, compulsory you have to remember all the provisions. Statement wise questions will be there. One question is damn sure. One question is equal to 10 lakhs rupees. The East India Company Act, which is also called as Pitt's India Act of 1784, was an act of Parliament of Great Britain intended to address the shortcomings of Regulating Act of 1773 by bringing the East India Company's rule in India under the control of British. So, now completely it is coming under the control of, means it is a step towards taking the control of East India Company. The role of East India Company started reducing, up to now regulating. Now what I am doing, now I am not regulating, I am removing the power. Means earlier you are having the power, but I am regulating. Now what I started removing your powers. Removing is complete removal. Regulating means you will be there, but I will be controlling you. Controlling means, regulating means still you have the power. Removal means no power. It started from Pitt's India Act of 1784. It distinguished commercial and political functions of the company, created board of control for political affairs, court of directors for commercial affairs. Completely. All the commercial activities of the East India Company will be taken care by court of directors. That's it. You don't enter into the political affairs. Your thing is only business. Your thing is only business. Don't enter into political affairs. For political affairs, board of control. Your duty is only political affairs. Territorial expansion, talking with the kingdoms, any war comes, who will take care? Board of control. So, complete division, two bodies came into existence, one body is called of court of director, another body is called as board of control. Thus called as double governance. Prelims point of view, what is double governance? Court of directors and board of control is called as double governance. Double governance from which act? Pitt's India Act. What is court of directors? All the commercial activities will be controlled by court of directors. All the political affairs will be controlled only by board of control. This existence of court of director and board of control together is called as double governance. So, this double governance came into existence by which act? Pitt's India Act of 1784. Empowered board of control to supervise and direct civil, military and revenue operations of British possessions in India. Civil, military, revenue, as a state, all the political affairs will be controlled by board of control. All business, buying and selling, trade, wood, T. All the commercial activities will be controlled by Act also stated that to pursue schemes of conquest and extension of dominion in India, it is been taken by Board of Control. Expansion, revenue, civil, criminal, territorial expansion, these all are under the control of Board of Control. Only business, only trade is under the control of Pitt's India Act, double governance, removal of the power from the hands of East India Company by two bodies, one is Court of Directors, other is Board of Control. Board of Control Political Affairs, Court of Directors, again I am telling you, I will explain and I will go to the slide. Why? Because this is unique model which is successful. When you read this PPT, this is your class notes. You no need to write any answers. This is your class notes. When you are reading, it will become easy for you. Why? Because I am reading word by word. So what happens, it will become very quicker. After 10-15 classes, you will feel very comfort. You will not feel like you are reading something new, which you already recited. So it will become very easy. It was very successful. It is a successful model. It proved also. So I am repeating the same. It is a unique model of me. It takes a lot of energy from me. Without seeing also I can tell. But repetition, why? Because you have to repeat, not me. See, knowledge is, I had, now you should also improve the knowledge. For that purpose, this PPT is, all the points are covered. This PPT is your classroom notes. 1773 and 1784. Tomorrow, next class, we will discuss about Charter Acts. What are Charter Acts? Charter Act of 1793, Charter Act of 1813, Charter Act of 1833, Charter Act of 1853, then we will go for Sipahi Mutiny. So tomorrow we will complete Companies Law, and after Sipahi Mutiny what? Crown's Rule. Crown's Rule means half of the historical underpinnings is completed. 1773, tell me the points, 6 points, remember 6 points. Governor of Bengal became Governor General of Bengal. Governor of Mumbai and Governor of Madras became subordinate to Governor General of Bengal. Third, 4 Executive Council who are directly recruited by British Crown. Next, Supreme Court 1 CGI plus 3 judges. Next, Court of Directors and corruption, 6 points. This is 1773 regulating. Why there is a requirement of regulation? Corruption increased. They got Diwani rights. They have got political powers. They got revenue powers. Then 1781, which is amending power, the conflict between the Supreme Court and Governor General Council. In order to neutralize this amending act, which gave powers of Supreme Court, powers of, so there will be no conflict. Why? Because it's fixed. Then 1784, Pitt's India Act. Mainly the removal of the powers of East India Company. By what? By double governance. What are the double governance? Court of Directors and Board of Control. Board of Control is political affairs. Court of Directors is only commercial trade related by Court of Directors. Revenue, civil, criminal, territorial expansion, everything is under the control of Board of Control. Board of Control, very important. Board of Control is recruited directly by the British Crown. Court of Directors are already existing East India Company officers. That is the reason the Court of Directors were being limited to business, commercial. But Board of Control, expansion, revenue, civil, criminal, all other are under the control of Board of Control. These all powers were earlier under the control of Court of Directors. Now Court of Directors doesn't have any powers. So their powers were being removed. The powers of East India Company were being removed for the first time by which act? Pitt's India Act. For the first time the regulation of East India Company started from which act? Regulating Act of 1773. There is a conflict between the Supreme Court and Executive Council of Governor General. The conflict was being neutralized by which act? Amending Act. So tomorrow we will discuss Charter Act of 1793, 1813, 1833, 1853. 20 years, 1793, 1813, 1833, 1853. Then Crown's rule. Okay, any doubts? Tomorrow onwards I will add previous questions, prelims as well as mains also, MCQs also I will add. Thank you, and 5:30 you will have history class. Thank you. Any doubts? Tomorrow onwards I will give one question and MCQs discussion.